Hi and welcome to my garden in the Oxfordshire countryside. It's September now and today I'm going to take you on a tour of the garden, share some jobs for the month ahead and also one of my delicious Damson jam recipes. You can also find me on TikTok and Instagram, and thanks so much for watching. This 6x8 glass greenhouse was here when I moved in a few years ago. It's unheated and it is where I sow all of my seeds, keep plants for overwintering, and this year, because of the heat, I also added some drain pipes and some guttering and 2 makeshift water butts to help with the watering. Outside of the greenhouse I have a small flower bed which is mostly laid with perennial plants and flowers, and a bargain eucalyptus that I bought a couple of years ago that has gone wild. And then on the side here I have my herbs, which just make it easier for me to get straight out the kitchen and pick them. I cut these back last month because the heat really did dry these out, and I'm going to try and split them and put new compost in, as they've been in these pots for a few years, and this will, I hope, reinvigorate them for next year. Here you can see one of my water butts and also half a cold frame and a bit of a dumping area for all the things that don't fit in my greenhouse. And here you can see is my beautiful kitchen garden, which we designed a couple of years ago. It's about 30 metres long and 3 or 4 metres wide and has a path running throughout the middle with raised beds at one end and then open beds at the other to allow me to grow a really good mix of fruit and vegetables. There wasn't a huge amount of plants in the garden when we moved in, but there were 3 beautiful fruit trees. First up on the right hand side here is this gorgeous conference pear. It's huge and we've had at least 200 kilos of pears off the tree this year. It is weighing down the boughs on the top, and I am a little bit worried that we're going to have some breakage if we have 2 bad storms over the next few months. So a tree surgeon is definitely something we're going to need. The weight of the pears here is really pushing the tree down, but the pears are so delicious, and for the first year we've actually taken a whole load of pears to the press for pear juice, so I will let you know what that tastes like when we get it back. The second established fruit tree that we have is this apple, which is an early sweet variety and has mostly been picked now. We've sent a lot of these apples off to the press and we have our own apple juice, and it is delicious. I've also got a few saved in the freezer for crumbles. And last but not least is this lovely cherry, which didn't actually perform too great this year but had a bumper crop last year, so I'm hoping this is an every other year kind of thing. Let me know in the comments if you know anything about cherry trees. And it's at this end of the garden that I keep my compost bins. As you can see, I operate on a 3 bin system. They are all full at the moment of kitchen scraps, garden waste and browns. And I empty them about every 6 months, sometimes a little bit more often than that, so 2 to 3 loads a year per bin. And I'll show you later on what I've been putting in them at the moment and how I keep getting attacked by flies. In my greenhouse, I've been taking cuttings of verbena. So this is the tall variety that spreads really easily by seed, but actually it's also great to propagate. So you can see that I've got some established ones there, but also some new cuttings. I've also taken some salvia cuttings. And on the right hand side here, you can see where I have sowed the broad beans, and you can sow these autumn varieties in September and October. They make a fantastic boost of nitrogen for your soil over winter, but they're also great for spring beans. I've got a few of these violet night aubergines left, but to be honest, it's really too cool for these now, so they'll be going over the next few weeks. I've got some garlic that's hanging, that's elephant garlic there, that I'll be planting out next week. And then I've also got lots of peppers and a few more aubergines that are sort of hanging on. I've got some erigeron seedlings down here that I have just pricked out, and I've also got some sweet williams and then some sedum on the left cuttings that I'm also trying to propagate. This is a variegated variety, so that's both green and white. And then I have 2 trays of foxgloves. Down here is the blueberry that I was gifted for my birthday. I need to put that on in some ericaceous compost. And here are a mixture of bulbs that I've just put in some soil, and these are ones that I want to flower at Christmas. So these are hyacinths and paper white daffodils, which smell amazing. There are a few tomatoes left here, but to be honest, they'll be going pretty soon. And then I have my potting bench, which is where I sow all my seeds, my seed collection, both flowers and vegetables, my seed envelopes, and all of the other rubbish and junk that I tend to keep and save for various different things in the garden. I've organised all of my vegetable seeds in this metal filing system, which is listed by alphabet, and then all of the seeds I've saved and the flower seeds are in tins and pots on the sides. My courgettes and squashes on this side of the bed have been a bit late this year. I've got butternut squash and a variety of courgettes. On the other side of the beds I have more tomatoes, and although I've picked a whole load of these this year, there's still plenty more on there, and some marigolds there for companion planting. The thing I personally love about growing vegetables and fruits are particularly growing varieties that you can't find in supermarkets. So these indigo blue and black moon varieties are just so special when you cut them up inside. They're so bright red, which is really surprising. I also grow a yellow pear, which is really sweet. And then I've interplanted with some leeks here and another courgette. And at the back you can't see, but there are actually some runner beans. I think salads are one of the easiest and best thing to grow. They taste absolutely amazing, so much better than shop bought. So I've got a different variety here, and a lot has been picked, and now I'm just replacing them with new plants as well. You can see that I've got some patty pans and some squashes, and that again I've interplanted with marigolds. This year I've also given mangel wurzel a go. If you haven't heard of these yet, go and check out She Grows Veg. There's some brilliant online videos and tutorials about how to grow these. There is still so much that you can sow both in your greenhouse and under cover, but also straight in your beds. I'm doing a few sow-alongs this month, so please come and check out my TikTok and Instagram pages for more info. The Damson is a small plum, sort of purple in colour, and can be picked August, September, October in the UK. If eating them, you want the really soft ones that just fall from the branch, like this one, but you can have slightly firmer ones for making jam. To make damson jam, I've washed the fruit and I've kept them completely whole with stones as well in, and then I'm squeezing in the juice of a whole lemon and just bringing these down to a slight simmer so that you can see that the skin splits and the fruit then separates from the pips. After about 15 minutes, they're completely separated, and then I pass it through a sieve to get rid of the pips. Otherwise it takes an age to pick these out. I know some people do it that way. So I've passed it through the sieve to get rid of those stones. Once passed through the sieve, it can add the sugar and start to gently warm through, and then bring to what's called a rolling boil, which you can see the mixture's really darkened here and started to thicken up. Although I am using a jam thermometer, you don't have to have one of these, but this one is a really good one I like from Kilner. The actual great way of testing to see if your jam is set is by pouring a spoonful onto a cold plate, preferably that's come out of the freezer. Now, if your jam starts to wrinkle and creates a skin on the top when you push it, then you know that your jam is ready to set. I've poured this into a sterilised jar, and as you can see, the jam is absolutely clear and bright. I think damson jam tastes a little bit like plum, a little bit like blackberry, somewhere in between, but it's definitely one of my favourites. If there is one thing that I can recommend more than anything else for sustainable gardening, and that is setting up your own compost. So here's what I'm going to be putting in my compost bin this month. Autumn is a really great time to be sorting a compost bin out because there's so much in the change of seasons that is still coming out of the ground. So any spent tomatoes or plants that have gone over, any brassicas that have got yellowy leaves at the bottom, all of that can go into the compost bin. This mostly fresh vegetation is classed as green, and you may have heard that you need to have a nice supply of green and brown. So brown is generally the more woodier and dried out vegetation, but is also things like cardboards and dry paper and anything really that's a dry material. It always amazes me how a mixture of this green and brown produces the most amazing compost and is brilliant for topping your beds over the autumn, for putting in pots, and for just generally feeding the soil. The other really big thing that's going in my compost at the moment is fruit waste. So these are pears that have rotted or have fallen from the tree in the winds and just haven't been used this year. So rather than waste them, I do put them in the compost as well. Because pears have a really high volume of water, so they're a very wet ingredient, you do need to make sure that you mix a good amount of browns, otherwise you will end up with slushy compost that is very anaerobic and smells awful. You can also see, as I just tipped these in here, that I've been attacked by flies. So there's a lot of fruit flies about at the moment, but they don't do any harm. They're all part of the process to degrade the fruit and to put this all down into creating the compost at the end. I am using the end of an old hoe to try and mix this around a bit. A bit of air is actually very good for your compost, so turning it regularly and mixing it is a really important part of the process as well. If I didn't pick all these pears up, they would just go to waste or they would end up in landfill. So it's really important to me that I can use as much from my garden as possible. But it is a pain. There are so many pears to pick up and there is so much fruit. And every single time that there's a little bit of wind and there's a few rustles of the branches, I get rained on with more pears. And as I say, this time of year, they tend to be a little bit more rotten now, where they've been eaten by birds and bugs and rotted through. So when they do land, they tend to splat. And of course, the other really great job at the moment is the actual harvesting. August, September, October are fantastic months for harvesting. And under this fleece, I have some curly kale. Curly kale is one of those amazing crops that you can pretty much grow all year round. It doesn't mind the heat, it doesn't bolt, and it also doesn't mind the cold either. The only thing I do in the summer is cover it over so that the cabbage white butterflies and the flies don't get too close to it. So I always tuck it back in afterwards until it's probably had the first frost. Kale is a fantastic source of vitamins and minerals and is a really, really tasty vegetable too. It can be roasted, it can be fried, it can be put in soups. I often put it in curries as well, so it's really versatile, plus it freezes brilliantly. Another great all-rounder is chard. This variety here is the pink peppermint from She Grows Veg, and it's been really, really pretty part of my garden this year. I'm adding my kale today to a lovely wintry spicy beef curry, and I'm using it just as I would spinach. It wilts down really nicely. It's so full of iron and so many good vitamins for you that it's a really healthy addition to any food. So as you can see, there's always plenty to do in the autumn in your garden. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this, and thank you very much for watching.